Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we are opening a file that I think for a certain generation, it really defines the era of televised justice.
Oh, absolutely.
It's a case that almost everyone knows by name, but when you really dig into it, very few people truly understand it beyond the headlines.
hmm
We are talking about the murder of Travis Alexander and the trial of Jodi Arias.
It is a name that brings up so much specific imagery, doesn't
Yeah,
it?
it really does.
The glasses, the courtroom outbursts, the just the media frenzy. It was a whole cultural moment.
Exactly. But here's the problem with cultural moments, right? They tend to turn real people into characters.
Yeah, caricatures almost.
When you hear Jodi Arias, you probably think of the circus, you think of the cable news pundits screaming, the Twitter wars, the absolute spectacle of it all.
Right.
But beneath all of that noise, there is a very real, very complex, and frankly, very disturbing case history.
It's so true. The sensationalism, it obscures the actual forensic facts and the legal strategies that were in play. And looking at the stack of sources we have today, which includes the full case history, trial transcripts, psychological evaluations, and updates all the way through to 2026, there is so much more to this story than just the drama.
And that is our mission today. We are going to move past that soap opera element and try to unpack the why and the how.
Yes.
We want to look at the psychology, the shifting narratives, which are absolutely wild when you lay them out chronologically, and this unprecedented intersection of social media and the justice system.
And it really was a turning point. It was the moment where, the jury box and the comment section started to blur.
So let's start at the beginning. Before the cameras, before the trial, before the hashtags. We need to understand the people involved.
Right.
Let's talk about the victim, Travis Alexander. Because in the Jodi show, he often gets reduced to just a prop. Who was he really?
Travis Alexander was a fascinating, multi-layered individual. He was born on July 28th, 1977 in Riverside, California. And to understand Travis, you have to understand where he came from. His backstory is actually quite tragic, which makes his later success all the more impressive.
The sources mention a very unstable childhood.
Very. I mean, he was one of 8 children.
8? Wow.
Yeah. His father died in July 1997, leaving the family in a really, really precarious spot.
So he was about 20 then.
Exactly. And eventually, Travis and his 7 siblings were raised by their grandmother. So it wasn't an easy start by any stretch.
Right.
He grew up with a lot of chaos. And by his own admission, he had a bit of a rough streak as a kid. He got into fights, he had a temper.
But he turned it around, right? He became this self-made success story.
He absolutely did. And that pivot is really central to his character. He began working for a company called Prepaid Legal Services, or PPL.
Okay, PPL, I've heard of them.
And he wasn't just punching a clock. He was a salesman, but he was also a motivational speaker. He was charismatic, he was driven, he was someone who projected a very specific image of success and positivity.
I was reading in the notes that he was deeply involved in his faith as well.
Yes, he was a devout member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
A Mormon.
Right. And his faith provided him with a community and a moral framework that he really seemed to cling to after his chaotic childhood. But there's another detail that I think makes him so human, which often gets left out of the grim retelling of his death.
The comedy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Travis did stand-up comedy. He had an alter ego named Eddie Snell. He would perform routines.
That's such a specific detail. Eddie Snell.
It speaks to that desire to entertain, right? To be the center of attention, to be liked. He was described by those close to him as a good man, someone who had overcome a history of fighting as a kid to become this polished, funny, successful professional. He was the guy you wanted at your party.
So you had this guy, Travis, who is projecting success and stability. He's built this life from scratch. And then enters Jodi Arias. What is her story leading up to their meeting?
Jodi Arias was born in July 1980 in Salinas, California. Her trajectory was quite different. She was a high school dropout. She left Eureka Union High School in the 11th grade. She didn't have that same drive for a singular career path that Travis had. She was sort of drifting a bit, working odd jobs, aspiring to be a photographer.
And somehow, despite these different worlds, they end up at the same place.
Well, Jodi eventually landed a sales position with PPL, the same company Travis worked for.
Oh, okay. So that's the connection.
That's the connection.
Right.
And that's how they crossed paths. They met at a work conference in Las Vegas in September 2006.
Vegas. It always seems to start in Vegas, doesn't it?
It does. And this meeting kicks off a dynamic that is fascinating from a psychological perspective. We see the first signs of what some experts call the chameleon effect.
Unpack that for me, because usually when two people meet, they get to know each other, but you're suggesting Jodi did something else.
She didn't just get to know him. She became what he wanted. She molded herself to fit his world completely. Remember, Travis was a devout Mormon. Very quickly after they met, Jodi expressed a deep interest in the church. Travis actually baptized her himself in November 2006.
Wait, let's look at that timeline. They meet in September, and by November, she is converting to his faith, and he is performing the baptism.
Yes.
That is a massive commitment for a relationship that is barely 2 months old.
It is, and it signals a lack of a strong core identity on her part. I mean, it seems like she was adopting his life. They started officially dating in February 2007.
Okay.
But the geography was tricky. Initially, she moved to Mesa, Arizona to be closer to him, which again is a huge move very early on.
A huge move.
But later, by April 2008, she had moved back to California to live with her grandparents in Eureka.
So they shifted into this long-distance dynamic.
Right. And from what I'm seeing in the timeline, intermittent is putting it politely. This was tumultuous. They were on again, off again. They would drive back and forth to see each other, but they were also seeing other people during the off times.
And this is where the external perspective becomes so important. Usually in a new relationship, you want your friends to like your partner. But Travis's friends, they did not like her.
That is an understatement. The source material is very, very clear. Travis's friends were actively worried. It wasn't just a personality clash. They reported some very alarming behaviors.
Like what? What were they saying?
Stalking behavior. She would show up unannounced. She was caught accessing his Facebook account without permission to read his messages.
That's a huge violation of privacy.
Huge. And then there was the incident with the tire.
Slashed tires.
Yes, Travis's tires were slashed. Now, Jodi denied doing it, but the timing was suspicious, and it fit a pattern of escalation.
That's a massive red flag. Slashed tires isn't just crazy ex behavior. That's property destruction. That's violence. Why did he stay?
That is the question, isn't it? It's the complexity of toxic relationships. Despite these red flags, despite his friends telling him she was dangerous, the relationship continued. There's this disconnect between the public persona Travis had, the leader, the mentor, and the private volatility he was entertaining. Maybe he thought he could save her. Maybe he enjoyed the intensity, but he couldn't quite cut the cord.
And unfortunately, that inability to make a clean break led to June 2008.
Let's move to that week, June 4th, 2008. But to understand the impact, we actually have to start with the discovery of the body, which wasn't until 5 days later, on June 9th.
Right. Because he lived with roommates, but they didn't realize he was dead. How does that happen?
It sounds strange, but the roommates thought he was busy or out of town. He was supposed to go on a trip to Cancun.
Okay, that makes sense.
But he had missed an important conference call on the evening of June 4. That was completely out of character for him. By June 9, his friends were genuinely worried. A group of them went to his home in Mesa to check on him.
And they found a key to his bedroom.
They did, and what they walked into was a scene from a nightmare. They found large pools of blood in the hallway leading to the master bathroom. And in the shower, they found Travis.
We have details on the 911 call from that night. It's chilling. But one thing stands out to me. The dispatcher asks a standard question. Is there anyone who would want to hurt him?
And the answer was immediate. The friends didn't say maybe a robbery or we don't know. They named a suspect immediately.
Who did they name?
They said Jodi Arias. They told the police right then and there about the stalking, the Facebook hacking, the tires. They knew.
Wow. Their intuition was spot on.
It was.
Now we have to talk about the crime scene itself, because the nature of the wounds. This wasn't just a robbery gone wrong. This was personal.
It was incredibly violent. The forensic evidence showed 27 stab wounds.
27. Just let that number sink in.
Yes. Most were to his back and torso. But the kill shots were horrific. His throat had been slit from ear to ear, severing the jugular, the carotid artery, and the trachea.
And a gunshot.
And there was a gunshot wound to the forehead for a .25 caliber weapon.
I've heard the term overkill used a lot with this case.
In criminology, overkill refers to when the injuries far exceed what is necessary to cause death. It usually implies a deep, personal, emotional connection between the attacker and the victim. It suggests rage.
Like a frenzy.
Exactly. It suggests an inability to stop.
And there was a big debate, wasn't there, about the order of the wounds?
Huge. And this became very important during the trial regarding the cruelty aggravating factor.
Okay, explain that.
The medical examiner, Dr. Kevin Horn, testified that Travis had defensive wounds on his hands.
Which means he was fighting back.
Exactly. He was conscious. He saw the knife coming. Dr. Horn believed the gunshot likely happened last, possibly even when he was already dead or dying.
Why does the order matter so much?
If he had been shot in the forehead first, a bullet to the brain would have likely incapacitated him instantly. He wouldn't have been able to raise his hand to defend himself against the subsequent stabbing.
Right, he'd be down.
The fact that he had defensive wounds implies that he suffered. He was fighting for his life while being stabbed 27 times, and the throat slit and gunshot came at the end to finish it.
That is horrific to even think about. But in terms of evidence, the police found something in that house that changed the entire case.
The smoking gun.
The camera.
A digital camera. It was found in the washing machine. Jodi had apparently thrown it in there and run a cycle with bleach, presumably to destroy it.
But digital forensics is a powerful tool.
It is. The camera was destroyed, but the memory card was intact. They were able to recover deleted images. And these photos, they essentially provided a minute-by-minute timeline of the murder.
Walk us through what the jury saw.
It's one of the most pivotal sequences of evidence I've ever seen. The photos started at around 1:40 p.m. on June 4. They show Jodi and Travis in the bedroom engaging in sexually suggestive poses.
So that proves she was there.
It proves she was there. It proved they were intimate that day.
And
then at 5:29 p.m., there is a photo of Travis alive, standing in the shower. He is looking at the camera. He looks vulnerable, wet. The water is running.
And minutes later,
the photos become chaotic, blurry, angle at the floor, the ceiling. But one image captures a subject believed to be Travis bleeding profusely on the bathroom floor.
Oh my God.
Another accidental snap shows the back of Jodi's leg and her pants.
So you have a photo of him alive, and minutes later, a photo of the murder in progress. It completely destroys any alibi she could possibly come up with.
It does. It puts the killer in the room, holding the camera, at the exact moment of death. And yet, despite this overwhelming objective reality, Jodi Arias went through a series of changing stories that are frankly baffling in their audacity.
Let's unpack those lies. This is part 3 of our dive, The Chameleon's Lies. When she is first arrested in July 2008, what does she say?
Story number 1, total denial. She told the police she wasn't even in Mesa that day. She claimed she hadn't seen Travis since March 2008.
Which we know is a lie because of the timestamp photos.
A blatant lie. But she stuck to it initially. However, as the evidence started to mount, specifically the DNA, because they found a bloody palm print in the hallway with mixed DNA from both of them, she had to pivot.
Enter story number 2.
The intruder theory. She claimed that while she was visiting Travis, 2 intruders masked men broke into the home.
The famous ninja defense.
The ninja defense.
Yeah.
She claimed they killed Travis and attacked her, but she managed to escape.
Did she explain why she didn't call 911 after this supposed attack?
She claimed they threatened her family if she went to the police.
Of course.
But the story fell apart instantly. There was no evidence of forced entry, no footprints from these intruders, no foreign DNA.
And her behavior afterwards, wasn't it odd?
Very. Going on a date, acting completely normal, it didn't match someone who had just survived a home invasion slaughter.
So finally, 2 years later, we get story number 3, the story she took to trial.
Self-defense. She admitted she killed him. She admitted she held a knife. But she claimed she was a victim of domestic violence and that she had to kill him to save herself.
So she goes from, I wasn't there, to ninjas did it, to, I did it, but I had to.
It's a drastic shift. And the prosecution, led by Juan Martinez, had to dismantle this self-defense claim. Their argument was that this was not a sudden act of fear, but a cold, calculated, premeditated execution.
And they had the receipts to prove it. Let's talk about the road trip, because this wasn't just a casual drive.
This is where the planning becomes undeniable. Jodi lived in Eureka, California. She told people she was going on a business trip to Utah.
Okay.
But looking at her route, she made a massive detour down to Mesa, Arizona.
And the car rental itself was suspicious.
She rented a car in Redding, California, which is miles away from her home. Why not rent locally? The prosecution argued she was trying to distance the rental from her identity. But the key piece of evidence here involves gas cans.
The gas cans. I remember this being a huge point of contention. Why gas cans?
She borrowed multiple gas cans from friends and purchased fuel in advance in California. The prosecution argued that this was to avoid leaving a paper trail.
Explain that.
If she used credit cards at gas stations in Arizona, it would place her at the scene. If she paid cash, she still risks being on CCTV at the pump. By bringing her own gas, she could travel through Arizona essentially as a ghost.
That is deeply calculated. That is logistical planning.
And then there's the gun. A .25 caliber handgun was reported stolen from her grandparents' home where she was staying just days before the murder.
Let me guess, nothing else was taken.
Nothing else of value. It was a staged burglary. Oh, and of course, the gun used to shoot Travis was a .25 caliber.
And she also changed her appearance. Right?
Yes. She dyed her blonde hair dark brown right before the trip. The prosecution argued this was to blend in, to look different, perhaps to look less like the Jodi people knew if she was spotted.
So you have the stolen gun, the gas cans, the hair dye, the detour. It's really hard to argue crime of passion or sudden self-defense when you have a checklist of preparations like that.
Exactly. Premeditation requires reflection and a decision to kill. The gas cans alone suggest she was thinking about how to get away with the crime before she even left California.
So we get to the trial of the century, or at least the trial of the social media age. This was 2013.
The atmosphere was electric and chaotic. It was described in the sources as a circus and a runaway train.
In what way?
You had members of the public lining up at the courthouse at 4 a.m. to get a seat. You had live, unedited web feeds broadcasting every second of testimony to the world. It was must-see TV.
And the defense strategy. Since Jodi had admitted to the killing, they couldn't argue facts. They had to argue character.
Right. They relied heavily on destroying Travis's reputation. That is a common tactic in self-defense cases, especially those invoking domestic violence. They tried to paint Travis as a monster.
And they made some pretty extreme claims.
They did. They claimed he was physically abusive. They even accused him of pedophilia, claiming he had urges that Jodi helped him with.
Which is a massive accusation to make against a dead man who can't defend himself. Was there any proof?
Zero. No corroboration from anyone. Just the word of a woman who had already lied to the police multiple times.
And then there was the testimony of Jodi herself. She was on the stand for 18 days.
18 days. That is unheard of.
It's insane.
Usually defense attorneys are wary of putting their client on the stand at all. But she wanted to tell her story. She detailed the alleged abuse. She told a story about him breaking her finger, which the prosecution later debunked with photos showing her finger was fine.
And the sex tape. That was a huge moment in the trial.
It was. They played a phone sex recording in court. It involved a consensual bondage fantasy where Travis talked about tying her to a tree.
And the defense thought this would help their case.
They wanted to use it to show Travis was degrading her, but it backfired spectacularly. On the tape, you can hear Jodi participating enthusiastically, saying she liked it.
So it didn't sound like a victim.
Not at all. It showed a consensual, albeit kinky, dynamic, rather than the terrified victim she was portraying on the stand.
And then we have the battle of the experts. This is where the psychology gets really technical, and I think this is crucial for our listeners to understand.
This was the core of the defense. They called Alice LaViolette, a domestic violence expert. She testified that Jodi was a battered woman, and that her lying to the police was a coping mechanism, a shame response.
And they also had a psychologist, Dr. Richard Samuels.
Right. Dr. Samuels diagnosed Jodi with PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, and something called dissociative amnesia.
The brain fog defense.
Exactly. He argued she was in a fog during the killing and couldn't remember the details because of the trauma.
But the prosecution had a rebuttal witness who completely flipped the script.
Dr. Janine DeMart. She was a clinical psychologist who strongly disagreed with the PTSD diagnosis. She diagnosed Jodi with borderline personality disorder, or BPD.
Okay, let's pause here. For the listener, what is the critical difference between PTSD and BPD in the context of a murder trial? Why does it matter which one she had?
It changes the entire narrative of the violence. PTSD is a response to trauma. It's about fear, hyperarousal, and flashbacks.
Right.
If the jury believes she had PTSD from abuse, it supports the idea that she acted out of fear for her life. It's a reaction.
And BPD.
Borderline personality disorder is characterized by unstable relationships, a frantic fear of abandonment, and a shifting identity. A person with BPD might experience splitting, where they view someone as all good one minute and all evil the next.
Okay, I see.
So in the context of this crime, a BPD diagnosis suggests that the killing wasn't about fear of harm, but fear of rejection.
So Dr. DeMarty was arguing that she didn't kill him because she was scared. She killed him because he was leaving her.
Exactly. The prosecution argued she killed him because she was furious he was moving on, perhaps taking that trip to Cancun with another woman. It aligns with the stalking, the slashing of tires, the checking of Facebook.
Yeah.
Those are abandonment issues, not survival issues.
That is a powerful distinction, and Dr. DeMarty's testimony was very damaging to the defense because it provided a psychological framework that matched the overkill nature of the crime.
Now, we can't talk about this trial without talking about the audience. Part 5 of our outline, the social media trial. You mentioned earlier that the jury box and the comment section blurred. How bad did it get?
It was the first time we really saw the full force of a digital lynch mob. I mean, the harassment was severe. Alice Levielette, the defense expert who testified about domestic violence, she received death threats. She was review bombed on Amazon. People who hadn't read her books were leaving one-star reviews calling her a fraud and a disgrace.
That is terrifying. It's one thing to have an opinion on a case, but to destroy a professional's career because they testified for the defense?
It's awful.
It raises a massive question about the judicial process. Can a witness testify freely if they know they will be destroyed online?
And Jodi's lawyer, Kirk Nurmi, he was mocked relentlessly. People superimposed his face onto crime scene photos. It was vicious.
And Jodi herself was participating in this media circus, wasn't she? From jail.
She was incredibly media savvy. She gave interviews from jail to Inside Edition and 48 Hours during the trial.
During the trial?
Yes. She even had friends tweeting for her from prison. She was selling her artwork pencil drawings on eBay from her cell. Her brother said it was to pay for better food.
That is surreal. Selling art while on trial for a brutal murder. It shows a level of narcissism and a desire to control the narrative that is quite rare.
So eventually the verdict comes down, May 8, 2013.
Guilty of first-degree murder. The jury found it was premeditated. They didn't buy the self-defense story, and they didn't buy the fog.
But the drama didn't end there. We moved to the sentencing phase. And this is where things got even weirder, if that's possible.
The penalty phase was to determine if she should get the death penalty. Initially, right after the conviction, Jodi told a reporter she preferred the death penalty.
Oh, I remember this.
She said death was the ultimate freedom.
A very bold defiance statement.
But when it came time to stand before the jury and plead for her life, she changed her tune. She said she wanted to live for her family. But then she did something that left everyone stunned.
The T-shirt.
She held up a white T-shirt with the word survivor written on it.
A survivor shirt, after being convicted of slaughtering her ex-boyfriend.
Yes. She told the jury she would sell the shirt for charity and donate the proceeds to victims of domestic abuse. She also said she would donate her hair to Locks of Love.
It feels so manipulative. It feels like she was trying to brand herself as a victim, even after the jury said, no, you are the murderer.
It was a very strange strategy. And the jury struggled with it. They deadlocked 8-4. They couldn't agree on death or life.
And there was a second penalty phase, right? A whole new jury just for the sentence.
Yes. In October 2014, they tried again. And again, they deadlocked. The second jury was 11-1 in favor of the death penalty.
11-1. One single juror held out for life.
And that juror paid a heavy price. Her name was leaked online. She was doxxed, threatened. Her address was posted. It was another example of that mob mentality attacking the process because they didn't get the result they wanted.
Because they couldn't get a unanimous vote for death, the death penalty was taken off the table.
Correct. On April 13th, 2015, Judge Sherry Stevens sentenced her to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. She will die in prison.
So that brings us to the post-trial era. It's been over a decade since the sentencing. We are in 2026 now. What has happened since?
There were appeals, of course. In 2018 and 2020, her team appealed based on prosecutorial misconduct and the media circus.
And there was misconduct, right. The prosecutor, Juan Martinez, was quite controversial.
He was. The appeals court actually ruled that egregious misconduct did occur. Martinez was known for being aggressive, perhaps too aggressive, and making inappropriate comments.
So did that affect the conviction?
It didn't. And this is a key legal concept. The court ruled that the evidence of guilt was so overwhelming that the misconduct didn't change the outcome. This is often called harmless error. The conviction stood.
Where is Jodi Arias today in 2026?
She is at the Arizona State Prison Complex, Perryville. She started in maximum security, the Lumley unit, but has since been downgraded to medium security. She's serving her time.
But I see a note here about a recent development, a blog post from this year, 2026.
Yes. Even now, over 15 years later, she is trying to control the narrative. In a 2026 blog post, she claimed that detectives lost or destroyed evidence, and that she is preparing yet another appeal regarding her constitutional rights.
She just won't let it go.
It fits the pattern we've discussed, the need to be seen, the need to be the victim, the need to explain away the reality.
And what about Travis's family? Is there any restitution?
She was ordered to pay $32,000 to Travis's siblings to cover their travel and funeral expenses.
That's it.
Her attorney noted at the time it was only a fraction of what they requested. But really, no amount of money fixes this.
It really is a tragedy from every angle. You have a young man, Travis Alexander, who overcame so much, who had a bright future, whose life was ended because he tried to leave a relationship.
And he was killed by someone who simply could not handle that rejection. It's a stark reminder of the dangers of untreated personality disorders and the volatility of toxic relationships.
And on a broader level, this case changed how we consume true crime. It turned justice into a spectator sport.
It did. And I think that's the legacy, really. We need to reflect on that. When we treat a murder trial like a soap opera, when we tweet threats at witnesses, when we turn lawyers into memes, we are stripping away the humanity of the victim. Travis Alexander wasn't a character in a show. He's a real person who died a horrific death. And that fact got lost in the noise.
That is the most important takeaway. It's easy to get lost in the Jodi show, but this was always about Travis.
Absolutely.
Thank you for taking us through this heavy, complex file. It's a lot to process, but the psychological and legal details really paint a different picture than the headlines.
It is important to understand the reality behind the sensationalism.
For everyone listening, take a moment to think about that boundary between justice and entertainment. And as always, stay curious, but stay critical. We'll see you on the next Deep Dive.